There we go. All right, let's get started. Start the night off with my first forget to unmute. So hopefully that's out of the way now. My name is Dr. Karen Reese. I'm the Vice President of Research and Education at Nehemiah Community Development Corporation. And to start off, I just want to give some Zoom instructions and kind of describe our format tonight. So we are in webinar format. So if you're attending the session tonight, you'll be able to see the mayor and Nehemiah staff and your city council members, but you won't be able to see yourselves and you'll be automatically muted. For the people who have signed up to speak, when it's your time to speak, we'll read your name and then I will basically promote you onto the screen. So I'll call your name and it'll be a couple of seconds before you magically appear on the screen. And then you'll have 5 minutes to share your thoughts with the city council and the mayor. And we'll take it like that. For the rest of the Zoom functions, to make it easier for us to call on you tonight, if you registered, we're gonna need to see the name that you're registered with. So if you look in your Zoom controls, you should see a box that says participants. If you look under attendees, you should see your name pop up. And hovering over your name, you'll see a couple of different options. One, you should see a section that says more. And if you click on that, it will allow you to rename yourself. So please rename yourself to whatever you entered in your registration. So if you're planning on speaking, we're able to identify you. The next thing is the Q&A section. So feel free to enter any questions that you have for the folks on screen tonight. We won't be taking questions live tonight, but we will collect any thoughts or questions that you share with us and use that in our work together going forward. And then finally, there is a chat box and feel free to click the chat box and you can use that at any time tonight. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Harry Hawkins.
Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Harry Hawkins and I'm the Executive Vice President at Nehemiah. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of background very briefly about the work that we're doing with the city and why we're here. So the leaders, the mayor and the other leaders of the city of Monona invited us to come and help them really create a community-wide movement that was going to be focused on equity and building an inclusive community. So one of the things that we thought was absolutely instrumental and foundational for this work was to really understand what the community wanted. We're not here to dictate what the community should do or how it goes about doing that work. We're just really here to facilitate the work that needs to be done and help build bridges between the community members and the city. So really our first part is really understanding what it is you as a community want. So we hope that you would feel free to share with us questions, comments, concerns tonight. And that way we will have some better idea and direction of how we can help you all do that.
Great, thanks, Harry. And now I'd like to pass it over to your mayor to share just some opening thoughts.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. On behalf of myself and the City Council, I'd like to welcome you all to this discussion tonight. We've heard from a lot of people over the past few months who would like to participate in something like this. So we're happy that you could join us tonight and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Great, thanks, Mayor. So now I'm going to go through the list and call on you if you chose to speak. And once again, you will have 5 minutes to share your thoughts. And the first, let me just see who's here. We'll start with Beth Esser. Beth, I'm going to bring you on screen. One moment. Hi, Beth, you can go ahead.
Hi. Oh, wow, being first. So I really am going to take less than 5 minutes. I'm going to just start out by saying thank you to Nehemiah for being here and to the mayor and the city council for organizing this. My thoughts are just that I think as a city, I'd like us to do what other cities are doing around the country in terms of forming committees and task force looking at like reparations and what we could do in that, and just also really recognizing and admitting to what our city has been a part of in terms of like neighborhood associations that had outright restrictions against African Americans living in their communities, and you know, issuing a formal apology and acknowledgement of that as a city, and then moving into the action work of what we can do moving forward. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Beth. We'll send you back. Takes me a second to get up to speed here, but we'll get better at it as we go. Next up, we'll have Brian and followed by Catherine. Brian, let me pull you up here. I see two of you, so let's see if I get the right one here.
Hey there.
Hi, Brian.
Yep. Hi. Awesome. Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, and thank you everyone for putting together this event tonight. I will also be pretty quick. I would say that I'm really excited and grateful that the city of Monona is taking this step and engaging with Nehemiah, who I think is the perfect organization in our area to kind of help us through this journey. So I'm really excited that we're working with Nehemiah. I think the one thing that I'm concerned about is that what I don't necessarily want this project to be is an exercise in like making ourselves feel better about ourselves, which it basically is to say that what I'd love to see out of all of this is kind of a comprehensive plan, or at least, you know, the first steps of the comprehensive plan as to where we're going to go with all of this, with the help of community input and Nehemiah's input. And furthermore, I would really like that to be totally transparent and visible from the city. I'm kind of envisioning being able to go to the Monona website and seeing a whole section on racial equity or anti-racist work, whatever we want to call it. But that we can kind of see what that plan is, kind of what we're committing to, and being able to then hold all of ourselves accountable for making progress on those items. So so that's, I think, one of the main things that I would like. And then another thing that I'm really hopeful for is that this is a way for people in our community to connect with each other, to engage, educate, and really just empower each other to be a part of the community and be a part of this process as well. Not just leaving it up to the leadership, but also be driving it from the grassroots as well. So that's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Brian. Next, we'll have Catherine Orr. Catherine, I'm bringing you on screen.
Now that I've unmuted and turned on my camera, that makes it a lot easier, isn't it? Okay, thanks so much. And I really want to thank the City Council and the Mayor for taking all of this seriously. And I'm referring to the work of equity here. And I'd like to echo the previous speakers who talked about the opportunity we have to build community and to do something different, and the desires we have for change. I'm a professor of critical identity studies at Beloit College, and as well as an equity consultant for several, higher ed institutions and nonprofits and things like that, and a facilitator for Witnessing Whiteness, which is kind of a movement in Madison that's pretty strong. I'm also a veteran of Black History for New Day from Nehemiah. Yeah, shout out. And I think about whiteness a lot. And I guess I just wanted to use my time tonight just to talk a little bit about sort of what I see in moving through the city. I've lived in Monona for 5 years now, coming up on 5 years. And just to sort of say what I've seen, I think from my perspective, in my experience, I find that the community ignores what's not white. So my kid went to Nuestro Mundo, and that is a kind of multicultural oasis in the very white space of the city. And I don't think it's ever acknowledged. And I understand that Nuestro Mundo, as an elementary school that sits right across from the Monona Grove School, right? I realize it's not a Monona Grove school, but it's also a space that is extremely multicultural in this white city and never seems to be seen as an asset. It's not acknowledged. 5 spaces are available for Monona parents to send their kids there every year. And I know for a fact that they go unfilled, right? And I realize this is a resource issue. I realize, there are competition between school districts and things like that. And yet I feel like that if Monona were to acknowledge in Westermundo, there would be a way in which our community in itself would become more multicultural in its sort of outlook, right? I just think that ignoring this is as an asset is, I think, an opportunity missed, right? I also think that violence is invisibilized by the city, specifically with all the Native American names of our streets, right? So much of Monona is sort of paying homage to a kind of version of Native American history. And I don't think that history is talked about anywhere. But the fact that our streets are so sort of harken back to Native American names, and even one of our streets is a racial slur, right? I'm talking about Squaw Drive, and that isn't something that we talk about, and the history that we sort of have investigated, I think is also a missed opportunity. I mean, this is not unique to Monona, right? Settler colonialism is what the United States was made of. But I think there's an opportunity there for Monona to take the lead because of so much of how we've sort of named ourselves. And then finally, I think whiteness is assumed by the city. I'm thinking about the outward facing videos on the About the City section website, and talks about what amazing, bucolic city we have. And it seems like every claim that's made is about, is followed by this invisible adjective. It's like, if you're white, this is a bucolic city. If you're white, this is a great place to raise your kids and, sort of be in a public space and things like that. So I feel like there are some opportunities for shifting who we are that we just haven't taken up yet. And I would really like to see us be brave and come together as a community and think about these things together. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Catherine. Next, we'll go to Jillian, and after Jillian, we'll have Jason. Hi, Jillian.
Hi. I too, like the others, want to thank the City Council and Mayor O'Connor for all of the work you've done in the last couple of months, and for having this session, and for in particular hiring Nehemiah to help us navigate. I promise to not be as articulate as Catherine before me. But I wrote a little statement, and it won't be as squishy as some of the other ones I've shared with you all in the last couple months. So I think for me, the big question is, do each of our City of Monona programs and systems advance liberty and justice for all 100% of the people in town and in our bordering towns? And I've been hearkening back to that because it's in the Pledge of Allegiance and we say it a lot. And I still don't think we're there yet. So if that's the case, we're not there yet, then what are improvements that should include all of us, most of us, everybody? And what are those obstacles that need to be dismantled? Sort of my question, the bigger question. And so I would offer, we need policies where we can create programs that increase Black home ownership. I think we could do really well by creating a friendly neighborhood community, groups that are based on trust, and just walk over and say hi, sort of jettison the language about community watch or neighborhood watch, and an education campaign about when to call the police and when not to call the police. And in my notes that I sent to Dr. Reese, you'll see an example that I've found in the last couple of months. I again, hats off to the Public Safety Committee in particular and the City Council generally for changing our policies for policing recently. And then I think changing behavior, of course, is what comes next, and that's really important to me. I would really like to understand the police and fire commission so that I know how to read about their activities. Even before Mr. Ferge's terrifying experience on June 2nd, I was trying to find out information about the Police and Fire Commission, and I can't quite understand how it fits in and how it supervises police and fire for that matter. So I would like that to be more visible, to quote the other gentleman, Brian, I think it was. I think that at the public schools that I'm connected to a little bit, I feel like there is a fair amount of dialogue about hate speech and how to discourage that and be more kind and generous to each other. And I feel like that's good. Our anti-bullying policies made the national headlines when they were announced. This is a while ago now. And so I feel like we could follow up on that. Let's see. I would love to work with county groups to have non-armed responses to mental health calls or other crises that our folks in our community are facing, and also education about when you should call and when you shouldn't call for an armed response, basically. I would love to encourage our police force officers to have 4-year bachelor's degrees. I understand from reading some of the data that also helps us get closer to Campaign Zero, meaning a shorthand for policies and behaviors that decrease violence against community members. Let's see. So I would like to float the idea of having an equity alliance where, we in the community talk with each other and build our capacity to look at policies, make them more fair, and work to make our behaviors line up with that and what that would look like. And the alliances that concept is that I've moved through the world as a white lady. So that's a lot of, my experiences are based on what I've experienced. So how do I be a good ally for other human beings? Because I do want liberty and justice for all, even though that sounds highfalutin in this, format, because it's a little bit heady, but I'm okay with that. So I just want to thank you all for listening. And I am also very grateful that the City Council is working through this. And like Brian mentioned earlier, I also look forward to helping the action happen and doing the work. So thank you so much. And I look forward to helping us go forward. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Jillian. It looks like you had another member of your household register. Is there someone else there that wants to speak?
That's me. I got confused in the registration process.
Great, so you're both taken care of.
Me and myself, yes.
Sounds good. Thank you. Next, we'll go to Jason Chung. Jason, I'm bringing you on screen.
Got it, I think.
Yeah, there you are. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I am really happy to see this community-wide initiative get underway. I haven't been that connected, I'd have to say, with Monona city government in the 25 odd years I've lived here. I used to be much more connected to the issues of race in terms of working with the city when I lived in the city of Madison. I served for about 7 years on the Madison's Affirmative Action Commission as a commissioner. I was a member of a mayoral task force on race way back in the day and was chair of a public engagement committee and authored a plan for study circles on race that was implemented by the city. I haven't been engaged with the city of Monona in anything similar to that. And so with the initiation of this community-wide initiative, I really feel like my relationship, that there's a side of my relationship to being a citizen of Monona that is coming alive, and I'm just glad to feel that. during the Safer at Home period, it's been an opportunity to connect with people because of how isolated we are and hungry to connect with people. Sometimes those new connections come up in new and surprising ways. And I've recently had a number of conversations with members of my family, my brother, my two sisters, their spouses, and their kids, about what it's been like growing up as a Chinese American in white communities. And I grew up on the East Coast. And I just mentioned that because as a Chinese American engaging in this process, there's just a complex set of thoughts and ideas that race around in my mind. The intersectionality of being an Asian American with what happened in Monona and what's been going on around the country this summer is really complicated. But I just want to say, I don't have time to get into those complications now, but I just want to say that as a Chinese American, how our community relates to its Black residents is of direct concern to me and my well-being as an Asian American in this society. One thought I have about the scope of this initiative is our relationship as a municipality with the county of Dane. Because given our modest size as a city, there are so many services provided to our people that are provided by the county, social services in particular. And so as we wrestle with how, and I'm of the belief that the way we provide services to our community members in some aspects needs real fundamental reform. But a lot of that has to do with the county. So I wonder how we are going to relate to the county as we move forward in this. I think my last comments will be about how I've been so impressed by young leadership of color around the country and in Dane County during this summer of protests. It is so clear to me that we have a younger generation of articulate and thoughtful and highly skilled leaders that are the hope for the change that we seek, and that people of my age need to support and follow. And with respect to this initiative, I would love to see those individuals. For example, I'm talking about people that I saw at Winnequa Park in that rainy June rally. Members of the Monona Grove Parent Equity Council, members of the Black Student Union, and other individuals like them, I would like to see brought into the steering of this initiative as quickly as possible so that this whole process is not just for them, but it's by them. And I think that is what the times call for. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jason. Next, we'll bring on Devin, followed by Catherine. Devin, I'm bringing you on screen now.
Okay. Thank you to the Nehemiah Center for putting this together, and thank you to Mayor O'Connor and the entire city of Monona, really. For anyone I haven't ever had the chance to meet, or anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Devin Renner. I am the Executive Director of the Monona East Side Business Alliance, the Monona Chamber of Commerce, for lack of a better term. So in terms of the people to thank for doing this, along with the Nehemiah Center, Mayor O'Connor, the City Council, I'd also like to thank the police department for being willing to listen. Chief Ostrenga is someone that I have found to always have an open door. And my sense that they are willing to have these conversations and to learn and to adapt and to develop these new practices to better serve the community. From the business community standpoint, the police department is a valuable resource in Monona. They go above and beyond in protecting and serving all of us. And I want to make sure that what they do, while they are learning and changing and having these conversations, that the service they provide is recognized as well. And so I really just wanted to make that comment and acknowledge Chief Estringa and the entire Monona Police Force for everything that they do and thank them for that. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Devin. Next, we'll hear from Catherine. And Catherine, I'm bringing you on screen now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Catherine, yes, we can.
Nice to see you. I just have a short statement, mostly of affirmation. Just wishing everybody a good evening and thanking the Monona leadership for approving this collaboration with Nehemiah and inviting this listening session. I believe it is a great charge for us to build racial equity in Monona, which has been my home for the past 31 years. I thank you, Nehemiah, for leading us through this building process. As a past attendee of Black History for a New Day classes and having watched you create and teach workshops for educators promoting anti-racism and education, I've had the honor of being a student of Nehemiah and Justified Anger. And with my learning, realizing how there is so much more to learn and that much more to do. So as a learner, I ask myself and encourage my Monona neighbors to ask the questions: where is racism overt in Monona? Where is racism covert in Monona? How am I complicit with that racism? And what can I do to dismantle racism and actively work toward anti-racism in Monona? I do believe as a community, we have the means to bring racial equity to Monona, and being here with all of you this evening gives me hope for that goal. So again, to Nehemiah and City of Monona, I thank you. I am here to listen, to learn, and certainly to follow your leadership. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Next, we'll go to Marianne Reed, followed by Peter McKeever. Marianne, I'm bringing you on screen now.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you. I'm going to read a statement because I'm a little nervous, and also Larry wants to get part of my time too, so I don't want to get distracted.
And there are two of you, so you do get 10 minutes total. Chief citizens, so don't worry.
She'll take 8, I'll get 2.
Sounds good.
First of all, I want to thank Nehemiah and the city for doing this. It is long overdue. Monona has come a long ways, but we have much further to go. When my parents bought their home on the corner of Wallace and Sterry in the mid-1950s, the thick paper abstract that came with the house had language in it that said no property could be sold to, quote, any Negro, Negress, or Italian without the permission of the other landowners, unquote. I grew up in a white Northern European descent bubble with only one Ho-Chunk child from one of Monona's first families in my kindergarten class as the only child not from the majority demographic. We all live in the bubbles of our surrounding community. Our view of the world is influenced by the history we learned or was omitted when we were in school, the entertainment and the news we watch. This leads us all to view the world through the lens of our own experiences, which means we have formed unconscious implicit biases. We can have bias without trying to do harm and still do harm because of our biases. In the second half of the 70s, I became a volunteer with the newly formed EMS. Both the volunteers and paid staff on the fire department at that time were white and male. One day early in the experience, I was down at the station on shift when a Black man came in to apply for a job. A group of firemen who were socializing at the other end of the room went silent during the entire time he was there. After he left, I heard one of them say, quote, "He'll never get hired," unquote. This comment was followed by laughter. Thankfully, this attitude was not universal and change did take place so that both Black and women firefighters and EMTs were accepted as valued colleagues. Progress has been made. We are the parents of 2 white appearing biracial children, both now adults. Both attended MG schools. Our daughter graduated in 2003, our son in 2006. I asked them for their reflections of their experiences. Our daughter remembers her classmates as acting, quote, clueless. At the time, she would relate issues that would bother her at school, such as when race was brought up in class, example, the civil rights unit, everyone would turn and look at the Black child in the class. That the choir director wanted a Black girl to sing the solo for the Lion King concert, but never picked her for a solo on any of the other concerts. Both of our children commented on the number of Confederate flags that were displayed, with the number increasing by our son's senior year. Our son said, when you are living in a community with such a small number of people of color, it is important to give them a voice and believe them. Again, Monona has made progress, but we have much further to go. So thank you to the city and for Nehemiah for helping us through this project. And I'll Larry talk.
Yes, and I'm glad the city is engaged in this process. And I spoke to the mayor about this over the weekend at a dedication to a memorial for one of our firefighters who lost his life in the line of duty. I'm the only African-American on the Public Safety Committee, and I was on the fire department for 30 years. And I was really concerned that we did a thorough review of the police department's policies and procedures. Alderman Goforth brought a valuable resource to our aid. I looked at, and we all looked at, the 8 Can't Wait set of policies related to law enforcement. I looked at former Chief David Cooper's book, Arrested Development. And then there were several other municipalities around the country that we looked at their procedures to incorporate changes into our procedures regarding use of force, de-escalation, and incorporated all of these different resources into the police department's policies and procedures. And we looked at this as not something that was done, but a process that would be ongoing, because there are other communities around the country looking at these issues, and other people are going to come up with good ideas. And I think we're committed to continue that process to improve our procedures for law enforcement in the city. And I want to thank Nehemiah.
Yes, thank you. We're both alums of Black History for a New Day.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you both. We appreciate your comments. Next, we'll go to Peter McKeever, followed by Peter Sobel. Peter, I'm bringing you on now. And Peter, if you're there, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
There we go. There we go. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I don't think I have any answers to this. I have some aspirations. To be honest, I'm entirely selfish about this at one level. A few moments ago, Jason said this issue was of direct concern to him as a Chinese American. I would submit that it's of direct concern to all of us. If we want to know others and understand them, we need to know them. Know thy neighbor. My neighbors are all white. I'm very interested in the notion, the concept of voluntary segregation, the tendency of various groups, ethnic groups and others to clan together, to move together. And I'd like to have the city think a lot about what we can do to become a more diverse community in terms of who lives here. If we're living with others, we will understand them better. And I'm anxious to do that. My friend Nancy Moore taught me years ago that culture eats strategy for lunch. We can come up with strategies, but really we're about trying to change a culture in this community and in others. And that is a very, very difficult task. This is a start. I too appreciate the efforts that the city and Nehemiah have put into this. But I remind everybody that this is only a beginning. This is not an end. This is not something that we're grateful for at this point, other than the fact that we've gotten started. But I'm really interested in the housing question of how we bring more people of color into our community so that we can know them, so that we are comfortable and they are comfortable, we being the collective us, and how we go about that. And as I said earlier, I don't have answers to that, but it's an aspiration. I think it's important to do. And if we can do that, if we can get to know one another better, I think we will all learn a lot, and it will make a big difference in our lives. And more importantly, it will make a difference in the lives of our children and our grandchildren. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Peter. Next, we'll bring on Peter Sobel, followed by Maggie. Peter, I'm bringing you on now.
And all right, thank you. Thanks to the city and all of you for starting this process, for starting down the path of this process. In the schools, we've been working on this for a while, this related issues for a while, issues related to race for a while. And to be honest, it's been difficult. We haven't made, I think, sufficient progress. But I want to say something. One of the things I've learned in this process, became obvious to me right now in the process, is that everyone who looks like me has no way of judging the statements and the things, the thoughts, the feelings, the statements of minorities in our communities. Now, and I hope you're going to start this process and you're going to continue this process and you're going to end this process by listening to the minority voices in our community. But the hard part is not listening to them. The hard part is, as Peter says, culture eats, it eats everything, good intentions. And part of it is because none of us have these backgrounds with which to judge the statements of none of us who look like me have the backgrounds with which to judge the statements that we hear from the minority community. And where we get into trouble is when we try and put those, like we do with all statements, everything that comes to us, when we try to put it in our own context, when we try to make those judgments. So what I have found I have to do, and I'm hoping that I want to urge you all to do that, is when you hear a statement, particularly when you hear a number of statements that agree from members of the community, that you don't try and judge those statements, you simply accept them at face value and say, this must be right. Because I find that I can't, if I try to relate a statement, if I try to judge that statement, if I try to put it in my own context, I can't do it. And the way I can make progress is by putting those statements, by just taking those statements at face value, then using those statements to build questions, specific questions, and trying to answer those questions, trying to address those issues that come directly out of those statements. So basically, in short, I would say, take what you hear from minority members in our community at face value, and you'll be fine, and you'll be able to make some progress. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Peter. Next, we'll hear from Maggie. Maggie, I'm bringing you on screen now.
Hello. Oops.
Hi, Maggie.
Tremendously backlit. Hi,
There
Karen.
you are.
Nice to see you. Hello, everyone. Mayor O'Connor and Alders, thank you so much for joining. And Harry, I apologize. I joined late, but I love everyone in Nehemiah, so I'm sure I would love you. I will keep my comments. Thank you so much for hosting this. And City Administrator, I'm going to say your name wrong. I'm just going to say Brian. Thank you guys so much for holding this tonight and for all of the conversations and focus that you have given to the question of racial equity in our city. So I will keep my comments brief. I think, and actually I'm glad to go after Peter and, was it Peter and Peter? The two, because I have comments that I think echo a couple of things that they would say, but that they said, but maybe from sort of a different angle. So I think a question that has faced a lot of white people this year is, what are we willing to give up in order to truly create a more equitable world? And I am here as a white resident of Monona to say, I think I speak for myself and for my husband that we want to put our money where our mouth is. I think a lot of things that the council is talking about and decisions that might be in front of you in terms of incentivizing home ownership in the city, as one example, cost money. And so I'm just here to speak in favor of those are things that I support. And I think, budgets are about priorities, taxes are about priorities, but I am here to just voice that I would like to make, if it costs money, that's fine, let's do it. Especially as it comes to home ownership, I think thinking creatively, and you guys all know so much more about this than I do. I know Alder Groupian, Alder Moore, you guys have been working on sort of cooperative housing and things like that in the city. But I think even from the standpoint of property tax credits or anything that we can do to remove barriers to home ownership in the city for, to just make it more equitable, I strongly support. The other thing that I just want to mention, I know specifically on the law enforcement side, there's been so much discussion this summer and fall. I think the challenge that we've seen is an incident like the one that happened in June happens, and we take action and we review. And what we find is that actually everything happened by the book. And so like we have the right policies and the officers followed the policies, and yet just a horrible thing happened. And so I think, and I know everyone is sort of aligned here, but just really encouraging you all to move beyond like, oh, we checked the policies and the policies are fine and we followed the best practices. That's not the point. The point is that the policies and the best practices allowed for this to happen. And so that's where we really need to be creative and find a new vision. And I think in particular, bringing the voices of citizens of color into really what does that need to look like, I think is critically important. So thank you so much for all of your time. I really appreciate it. And see you soon.
Great, thanks, Maggie. We've come to the end of the list of people who I have on my list that requested to speak, but we want to give the opportunity for anyone who's maybe changed their mind and would like to speak now. You can either raise your hand. If you see your panelist tab, you can raise your hand there, or you can note in the chat, and we'll catch your name there. So if you'd like to speak, please go ahead and do that. I see a couple of you raising your hands. That is excellent. I see Brian here. There were two Brians, so I'm assuming this is another one of the household. I'll bring you on. But if you've already spoken, we're only giving people one shot. So just so you're aware here. Ah, there you go.
Hey, I'm actually Althea Dotzer, so I'm.
Oh, great.
Thanks so much for giving me a chance to talk. I am delighted that Monona has partnered with Nehemiah, and I think it's fantastic that our tax dollars are going towards paying Nehemiah to do this work to help our city. I think it's really important to kind of put our dollars where we want to see them spent, and little is more important to me than making sure that we're finding ways to deal with the inequities in race everywhere, and so starting with our town seems perfect. I guess thinking about the question of how to make Monona a great place for everyone. One area that seems like an easy place to start is education. Several people talked about there being a culture of whiteness here in Monona, and I think things like city-sponsored book groups, if there was like an African American history class specifically for Monona residents, if there's film series, things like that seem like a really nice way to help have the dialogue amongst residents be more focused on racial equity. I would also mention with the Native American history, I live on Sioux Trail, and that was actually the name of the street was kind of a question mark for me about whether we should move here or not. I was kind of like, I don't think that feels right to me. And I would love to see a deep consideration of our city's relationship to its Native American history and how we are aligned and respect that history. My kids also went to Nuestro Mundo, and I think that that's a really underutilized community that's diverse and is bringing in a lot of people outside of the city, but it's been very separate, I think, from Monona in a lot of ways. And there's probably ways to look to connect more while they're here. And then I guess just as this group moves forward, looking at how to bring racial equity through all the major areas, housing and transportation, policing, education. Obviously, each of those requires a whole lot of deep thought and trying to take our lead whenever we can from people of color who have a better sense than I do probably for where the real problems lie. So thank you for giving me a chance to talk tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Althea. Next, we'll go to Josh and followed by Chuck. Josh, I'm bringing you on now.
Hey guys, sorry I'm having problems with the camera.
No worries, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Well, just a huge thank you to the city. And I just want to say how encouraged I am by the number of citizens that are participating in the discussion tonight. I look to our concerned residents to really get the word out on this conversation, because I think it's really important to give voice to experience. And a number of the people that we've heard from tonight are white. We're seeing very few folks of color come here, and I think that's where we really start to understand what experience those who aren't white really feel day in and day out. And so I encourage everyone on this call to go out, to get proximate, to introduce yourself to your neighbors, and spread the word that this is a conversation that our community is committed to. Again, I applaud city leadership for taking this seriously. And I hope it's a sustained effort. I had reached out to our council members, our alders, and our mayor, and proposed that we establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a sustained commitment to a dialogue. And it's something we're continuing to discuss and evaluate. And whether this conversation evolves into something like that or something else, I just really look for a sustained commitment, because the more we give opportunities like this, I hope people will be inspired to come forward and have the courage to share what their experience really is, because that's how we learn. So again, thank you to the city, and thank you to Nehemiah for taking this so seriously.
There we go. Thanks, Josh. All right, next we'll hear from Chuck. Chuck, I'm bringing you on screen now.
Got it.
There we go. Hello.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll just join everyone's voice in expressing appreciation for the opportunity. And I'm especially proud of myself for investing in the time, because I've just been terribly impressed with the engagement and the thoughtful and constructive observations and suggestions made by everyone I got to listen to. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Chuck. That's all the folks that I have with hands raised. Douglas, thanks so much for your comments in the chat. Appreciate you sharing. If anyone else does want to speak, please go ahead and either raise your hand, or you can make a note in the chat that you'd like to speak, and we'd be happy to bring you on. We have plenty of time. While we wait to see if anyone else would like to speak, I do just want to mention a couple of things. Our work, when we do work like this at Nehemiah, we always start out with an assessment, and the assessment involves speaking to a number of people across the city. We started speaking with people in various staff positions, most staff leaders in the city, and then that led to referrals from other, from the city staff for me to speak with other people across the city. We have a few more people to talk to still, but basically what we do is take all of those thoughts and impressions, write them up into themes, and then we'll give a report to the city highlighting those themes, making some recommendations for our work together, and highlight some strengths and weaknesses in this area. And all of this will help us set the stage for the work that Nehemiah is doing with the city of Monona. The work that we do is very adaptable, so we like to stay flexible to make sure that we're hitting the issues at hand, and making sure that it's appropriate for what the city of Monona thinks is important and what Nehemiah sees as important as well. That does involve, the assessment interviews that I'm doing does involve speaking with more people of color. We also have 2 additional listening sessions that we're still working out all the details with the city, but stay tuned for more information on those things. Tonight we have 46 in attendance. Oh, someone already thanks whoever answered that, Harry, on top of it. Okay, well, I don't see anyone else interested in speaking. If you do, just please raise your hand, but I'm gonna allow some time for us to hear from any of our alders that would like to share thoughts. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So alders, well, if you can take 3 minutes if you would like to share your thoughts. And you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Christy.
Thank you so much, Karen. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and these amazing comments. A lot of wonderful, wonderful comments. I agree with someone who said this is long overdue. It is. Oh, you know, I had this fluffy statement prepared, but I'm going to go honest. It's just who I am, and I just can't not. This is a great opportunity to do that. When I started working in Monona 6 years ago, probably like 3 weeks after starting my job, keep in mind, I knew very little about Monona. You know, I received an anonymous letter, and it was, you know, it was filled with racial epithets, and it just made me realize that that I needed to keep my Indigenous background quiet in this community, because I have that luxury of appearing white, despite having an Ojibwe father. And so I went forward with that until really I ran for office here, and let people know. I think, you know, if you roll ahead about 4 years, and I helped co-found an event here that was an amazing cultural experience for Monona. It was called the Momentum Urban Arts Fest, where we brought in about 85, you know, diverse artists from around the country to put street art up throughout this city. And it was an incredible event, and it was an incredible, it is still an incredible asset for this city. It's unique to Wisconsin. You don't see, other than Milwaukee, you don't see a lot of street art like this here. Yet when you go to the city's website, you see Monona mural singular. And the mural we do have by Southtown is fabulous. And the Ho-Chunk partnership there is fabulous. But there are more murals here. And someone commented about ignoring anything that's not white here. And I think we take part in a lot of things that make us feel good, and feel like, you know, we're doing the right thing. But are we really talking to the people of color in our community and hearing them? And someone else said, not judging their statements and just listening to them and honestly trying to do better. I've been pretty highly criticized for being critical of this community. And it's one of the reasons I ran for office was because really the people who are critical, we're often the optimists. We're the ones that can see that things can be better. We have hope for change, and we're the ones that help kind of keep pushing and propelling forward. And so I feel like I could just go along with my fluffy statement that I had prepared and say, I love this community, which I do. I would not be serving on this council and dedicating, all of the hours that myself and all of my colleagues dedicate serving here if I didn't. I love this community and I expect my children to graduate from this school. But yet I feel like we've got some work to do. I really hope we look at our priorities closely, and like public transit, like limiting public transit is a great way to keep people of color out of our community. And so I've been asking on behalf of the business community when I was running the chamber, what can we invest in public transit? What can we do? But I have been told we couldn't afford that. We did just buy a new park. And so I'm hoping in our parkland, San Damiano, I'm hoping with that parkland, we really examine our culture here and our opportunities to do something different and maybe honor our native heritage, honor, different cultures other than the white culture that is so predominant here. Yeah, I think that's all I've got. I really think we have a great opportunity. This is an amazing moment in time in Monona, and I hope we seize this moment. Thank you all for your work, and thank you to all my colleagues. Really, so many of you have been here for so many years, and you've dedicated countless hours. I cannot imagine how you've done it. And I'm grateful to all of you for being here.
Great, thank you. Who would like to speak next? Alder Moore?
Sure. Good evening to everybody. Unfortunately, most of the screen's been frozen for me tonight because I happen to be on a poor internet connection, but I hope you can hear me. And I simply want to say to everyone, thank you. I want to thank my colleagues and the mayor, but more I want to thank the members of the community that participated tonight. And I look forward to seeing more members of the community at future events and future listening sessions, and particularly those members of the community that are individuals of color or otherwise been marginalized in some way. I know I feel very strongly about this work, and I was one of the individuals pleased to champion Josh Peterson's proposal for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which, as he indicated previously or earlier, is still under discussion. And frankly, we didn't want to roll out kind of too much at once and have everything kind of stepping on each other, our initiatives. And so, I do expect that down the line, we'll see more of that. But I just want to thank everybody for their thoughtful comments, for their thoughtful actions and thoughtful behaviors in the community. And I look forward to working with the community and with my colleagues. And that includes the city staff as well as elected officials to make Monona a much more just and equitable place. And that's not to say that, certainly we have work to do, as all communities do. I love Monona as well, and we all do. And I think there's obviously issues of sort of omission and a lot of issues, as I've written before. There's a buckets full of systemic issues that we're dealing with here, and they're certainly not, as I said, not singular to Monona. And I look forward to working with everyone. And thank you again for coming.
Thanks, Nancy. And we are recording this, so I'll send that out so you can pick up what you missed.
Thank you.
Who would like to speak next?
I just wanted to thank all of the community for coming out. I did want to let you know, I know with Zoom, it's difficult to tell if somebody's texting or writing, but I was furiously taking notes. So if I wasn't looking at the screen at the time, you know what I was doing. I am pleased with all of the comments that we heard tonight. I'm grateful that we are partnering with Nehemiah. It's ironic, but I spent the evening of June 2nd at a webinar with Dr. G, and it was a wonderful session. And I have been connected to Justified Anger since then. And so I'm pleased to continue the partnership with Nehemiah. I think that there is lots of work to be done, and I'm hoping that with your guidance, we can make some progress. I am pleased to say that the city has taken some steps in some actions, including staff at the library doing some work on their own, reviewing a book and kind of starting those conversations on their own. So I hope that it shows a commitment to the work that needs to be done. And so I'm grateful to be able to be a part of this. I won't center myself anymore. So thank you.
Thank you. Alder Thomas.
Just a couple of comments. First of all, thanks to everyone who helped educate us tonight, and thanks to Nehemiah. We look forward to many more interesting sessions so we can learn. Couple of takeaways for me. The housing issue is a problem, but what's more than that, and I had a good friend who's actually, she was my boss, African American, going to buy a house, and I said, oh, come to Monona, we have this great community, you know what? And she said, no. And I said, you know, my kids get frustrated because we don't have diversity at school. We don't have people of color at school. And she said, because she said, all day long when we're at work and we're downtown, we run the risk of having someone say something to offend us or insult us. And when we go home at night to our homes and family, we don't want to risk that. We don't want to when we're out walking or in our backyard. And she said, we go to places where we feel comfortable and welcome. So we all have a lot of work for the people, the broader community who isn't here tonight, to help educate them so people feel welcome in this community and all other communities. I mean, we can do the housing programs, and that's a great thing, but we have to make people want to live in Monona because they feel valued. So that's one thing, and I don't have the answer to that one, and I see you nodding your head, Harry, but you know that is, I think that is our big challenge. And I'm sorry, Christy, about the Native American piece, because I have always respected the white horses, and I thought this community did. I mean, we have a poster that has Harry Whitehorse in it. When we bought Ahuska, the city went to the Whitehorse family and the Ho-Chunk tribe and said, help us pick a name. This is your community. We all respect the mounds that we have and the heritage that we have. And so I'm sorry if you had that experience and didn't feel welcome, because people I know have always valued the Ho-Chunk heritage and the tribal heritages that we have in this community. So I'm sorry about that. So thank you, and I look forward to the next couple of sessions and learning more and moving ahead.
I echo a lot of the sentiments shared tonight. I'm just so grateful for this opportunity and to be a part of this equity work. It's really what I look forward to most these days. No offense to budget conversations and committees of the whole, but this really gives me life during what I think is a challenging time for everybody. One of the most important things that I've learned in my journey toward learning about equity and systemic racism and race relations and all of the challenging conversations I learned when I was training in community restorative court, and one of the acronyms they gave us was WAIT. Why am I talking? Why am I talking? And so I just hope to be a good listener and really work on that, trying not to dominate the conversation or center things on myself or on the council or on our local government, because it really is about the community. So thank you, Nehemiah, Karen, and Harry, for this opportunity. Thank you to the council and our leadership. But I am just hoping to kind of train myself and encourage others to have a listening ear throughout this entire process, so we can really get to the bottom of everything and do our best in making Monona a better community than the one that I think we sometimes say that it is. So thank you.
Thanks. Alderwood?
Thanks. Yeah, I would also like to thank all the community members that came out for this first session tonight. I'm old enough, as several of us are here. I grew up during the civil rights era in the 60s, and it's been an exciting last 7 months in a lot of ways to see the racial equity discussion, coming to the forefront, albeit as a result of a horrendous event, one of many that keep happening. Anyway, I guess I am disappointed, not terribly surprised that here we are some 60 plus years after the Civil Rights Act and still dealing with a lot of the same issues. I'm more locally though, I'm really encouraged that the city council, the mayor, the staff, everybody has really bought into this. Tonight's sort of the first public facing discussion that we've had. We've certainly had a number of those, quite a few of those internally and at city council meetings. So I'm excited to get this going and to see, where it leads, and committed to staying with it, because it is something that's going to take a long time to make progress. I guess I'll say it that way. Thanks again to everyone.
Thank you. Harry, you had some comments? Or Mary's going to jump in either way.
Yeah, it looked like
Let Harry go.
Mayor. Oh, you can go ahead and go.
I just wanted to say I think this has been a good discussion, and I think the events of the last several months have been eye-opening for a lot of people in Monona. I've been struck, I mentioned this to a couple of council members I know, by how generational the response has been that we're receiving from people. And I think a lot of people are anxious to learn more about this and are understanding some things they didn't always understand before. So I'm hoping we can continue. We're planning to continue to offer more opportunities like this. And I know Nehemiah is going to be eventually doing some of their classes and things here. And hopefully everyone continues to show interest. And I would say you can reach out in the community if you have anything you'd like to suggest or questions you have. Please feel free to reach out to me or any of the council members. We, contrary to what we hear, you might have heard sometimes, we always do respond, and we take what people contact us about seriously. So if you just go to the city website, mymonona.com, and look on I Want To, you can, one of your choices is contact the mayor or contact the city council, and someone will respond to you for sure. And we will definitely make a note of any suggestions you might have. So we appreciate everyone's input tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you again, Mayor O'Connor and City Alders. We do appreciate that. And I also wanted to address one of the questions that someone asked. We aren't terribly surprised there aren't a lot of African-American community members on the call. Really, that was somewhat expected. There are a lot of reasons for that. Some of them might be access time, or it might even be just people have been a part of conversations or things like this, and don't really care for what they might think will be just talk. So they want to see the action before they'll get involved. So we planned on having to engage with our African-American community members in a different manner. So we already planned for that before we ever even signed the contract, because we knew that was going to take some different work. And I would just like to encourage everybody to, as we go through this, I love the suggestions, because that's great. Lets us know kind of some of the things that you all are passionate about. but all of these are complex issues. And so this won't be a quick fix. It'll be something that we have to work on and find leverage points and begin to work together. So just a quick story, just even about the neighbors. I know housing is a big concern. My wife and I recently moved towards the end of April. And for instance, one of our neighbors invited us over for some socially distancing like event for 4th of July. And I didn't know how to respond because I was learning about some of the Native American history. And as a Black person, I'm also dealing with my own issues with the nation. I love the nation. I consider myself a patriot, but it didn't feel like a moment that I should be lighting fireworks and, kicking back with a beer. And I wasn't sure what it should look like. I was in the process of trying to figure this out. And so here's my neighbor who I've talked to maybe 2 or 3 times, inviting me to their house for this. And I have no idea how to unload all of this information. That's a very intimate process for me. And I haven't landed on an answer yet with a stranger, right, who happens to live next door. And so don't be discouraged if people don't just run into your open arms and embrace and brotherly and sisterly love and human love. This is complicated, right? And so while you're on your journey, remember that other people are on their journeys as well. And so the whole idea is we're going to figure out how to do this messy journey of life together. And that's really what this is about. So it won't be as clean and as pretty as some of the movies, but we will be working to make sure we move forward. So thank you all for that. But I just wanted to address that. We aren't concerned about the demographics of the call. We somewhat expected that. So.
Great. Well, I don't see anyone else who would like to speak. So I want to thank everyone who logged on tonight. I think this worked pretty well, bringing people on. It was the first time trying this, which I'll confess now after it's done and worked out okay. So thanks for bearing with us in this very strange time in our virtual world. It's really great to hear from all of you. We do have the comments in the Q&A and the comments in the chat. We have those all saved, and we also have this session recorded. So we'll make sure to get it in front of other folks who need to listen to this. And we'll also be incorporating this into our greater plan for our work with the city of Monona. Mayor or Harry, any final closing remarks? Okay, great. Thanks everyone so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.